Welcome, NFL fans, Falcons fans. Great to see you again. We're back on another Saturday with Atlanta Sports Unlimited's Jocks and Pigskins. I'm Tom Pollen.
And I'm Wanda Weidman.
Wanda Weidman, yep. Got a fun show for you today. Week 11, and we have some NFL clashes that are rivalry battles, and also going to have an impact on playoff seeding this year, and we'll see how that rounds up in week, after the action of week 11. But right now, we'll also have Wanda's waiver wire, which we've done for 2 weeks now. And if you listened to her last week, you did pretty well. You might have gotten a couple players that really played a big part in your fantasy league. And then we will finish up with Nostradamus Predicts. I was 3-0 with my picks last week.
Look at you.
Yeah. And that's against the spread, not just picking winners. That's picking against the spread. So, I'm always happy when I can have weeks like that. Take a lot of pride in being able to do that and give everybody their spread picks.
Yeah.
And make sure that, I don't steer them wrong. But again, some big rivalry games coming up. Falcons at Saints had their big rivalry game last week, and it looks like the Saints got a bit of a boost from the head coach change, from moving from Dennis Allen to Darren Rizzi, who was their special teams coordinator. And the Saints came out with a 2017 victory, and the Falcons came out with a lot of injuries, and it's going to affect their game this week against the Denver Broncos. So, especially in the secondary. Yeah. We keep our fingers crossed. Of course, the Falcons play Denver this week, the Broncos, who are playing pretty well, and they are keeping themselves in line for a playoff, for their own playoff seeding. And we'll see how they move forward. They want to keep themselves within reach. They're not going to catch the Chiefs, not going to catch the Chargers, but that doesn't mean they can't be playoff contenders.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's the thing to look for. So the Falcons are going to have a rough game this week. And, hopefully against that Denver defense, they can make something happen, between Bijan Robinson and their receiving core.
Yeah, but, Kirko's going to have to get that ball out a lot faster. With that defensive front. So I think I think this is going to be telling of Kirko under the pressure when he doesn't have a good offensive front with injuries and so on, because we saw how that played out for him when he was in Minnesota. So I think that's going to be the same thing. So he's really going to have to either rely on the run game with Bijan and get that to where they get the ball out, moving it, and then he can throw the if he has time, get the ball out or get those long passes when he can get them. But I don't think it's going to be a easy game for him.
No, it's not. And he wasn't particularly mobile when he was with the Vikings.
Yeah.
So this, and so this game becomes a real challenge for him to try and stay away from that pass rush.
Yeah.
Denver is 6th in the NFL in creating negative pass plays, sacks and interceptions. Going to be a rough weekend for the Falcons to adjust to.
Yeah.
We have one of the first rivalries I do want to mention. We have the Bears facing the Packers for the first time this season. Going to be on the lakefront at Soldier Field in Chicago. Longest rivalry of any in the NFL. First played on November 27th, 1921. Bears won 20-0. And George Halas caught a touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. So it tells you how long that rivalry's been going on.
Yeah.
Means a lot to the teams. Means a lot to the fans. Probably means more to the fans than the teams.
Right.
And, if you've ever spent time living in Chicago or living in Wisconsin, it means a lot to fans and how well their team is doing. Yeah. But not necessarily around the NFL. In the NFL world, it's not looked at as one of these premier games. It's become an also-ran game, and that's disappointing.
Right.
Considering how old and how storied these franchises are.
Yeah. And that's on the Bears, front office in the coaches that they picked and how they developed the team. They just did not put themselves in a position to beat the Packers, and overcome Rodgers when he was there. And so it's a long time of waiting and coming. And unfortunately, with what's going on with the Bears, it's not something that Bears fans are looking forward to. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you notice in Twitter that Packers fans are so upset that they can't have this tit for tat that they're constantly doing with Bears fans back and forth every time they play, because Bear fans are like, forget it. They're like done with the season already, and they're not even trolling the Packer fans. The Packer fans are just upset about it.
Yeah, I know, and that's always part of the fun of Packer Week.
Yeah,
is getting that fan interaction going, and I've been part of that too. But the Bears have been the biggest problem in this, not being able to put together a team that contends, that is worthy of being seen as a rival to the Packers. I know Bears fans were looking at it very optimistically to start the season.
Right.
With Caleb Williams coming in and thinking maybe Caleb Williams could help even up this rivalry. But one of the reasons, one of the things we'll also be looking at Sunday is the fact that Shane Waldron got fired Monday as the Bears OC because the offense was a mess.
Yeah.
And a big reason why Bears fans are throwing their hands in the air right now.
Yeah.
And wondering where we're going to get this from, where things are going to happen. And hoping that, Thomas Brown, who was the offense passing game coordinator, can come in and make a difference on offense with this Bears team. Figure out a way to kind of get through to Caleb. I think Williams has become very deliberate in the pocket. I think he second guesses himself in the pocket because he threw a lot of interceptions early. I don't know how you see that.
No, I see it. I see it the same way. I think he's become kind of gun shy in the way that he started off the season and then was telling himself I know a lot of Bears fans are sitting there saying that it was the coaches telling him constantly, he can't be throwing interceptions, but every quarterback knows this. So it's not something that they need to be told all the time. And Caleb is very hard on himself, and he kept saying, I can't do that because that's not how I play. So he's referring to himself, and he's saying, I don't want to be that guy. So he's overcompensating, and when he's doing that, he's missing the mark because he's so worried about it instead of playing free. And I think he needs to get out of his head to be able to push that down. Now, there's something about Thomas Brown when he took over in Carolina. There was a game with the Packers. It was like the fourth game he was coaching, and they played the Packers, and he told Bryce to let it rip, just play free. Mm-hmm. And he knew what the scheme was with the Packers, so he's just like, let's just play free. It was Bryce's best game.
Yeah.
The way he threw the ball, it was past 11 yards every time, and he'd nail it. And they'd run the ball, and it would move the ball down. And I bet you that Brown is going to do the same thing here. He's going to compare Bryce Young and Williams with the problems that they were having, get them out of their heads, encourage them in that way, and just tell them, play free, throw the ball. Don't be afraid. Just get it down there, but be smart.
Right.
And I think that's going to completely change the dynamic if he can just let that go, because we know that Caleb's he's got the really good potential. He can get the ball down the field. He just hasn't been able to connect with the players like he did earlier in the season.
Right.
So it's just something that whether he was in his own head, and maybe too that with this talk about Waldron being such a nice guy, that Waldron wasn't sitting there going, Caleb, you need to do this and adjust this. Let me see you go. Let's go here. Come on, let's go. And maybe he just wasn't doing that, and it wasn't pushing him to get to be great. And it's obvious that the players want to be pushed to be great. You know that, right? And it's like not being in a Pee-wee league. When you're a Pee-wee league and go, that's okay. Everybody wins. You did a good job. It's like, no, these are grown men who want to be pushed and want you to yell at them and want the expectations to just play great, be great. You can do better than this. That's what they want.
Yeah, I agree. Wholeheartedly agree with you. Yeah. And I think Thomas Brown is capable of that.
I think so too. Yeah.
I've liked what I've heard from him this past week.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Caleb's got to grip it and rip it.
Yep. Exactly.
That's it. But he's got to know what the defense is doing.
Right.
And that's a big part of it. And that's something that I think he's been missing. Yeah. And has been lacking in his education. When I see the safeties line up in this way, am I seeing zone? Am I seeing man? And some teams have been fooling him, showing him zone playing man, or showing him man playing zone.
Right.
And he's got to recognize that and know where he needs to go with the football.
Yeah.
And I think he's been trying to play safe. I think that's one of the reasons why he's been targeting Keenan Allen so much.
Yeah.
And Rome Odunze, who he has a affinity with because they're both rookies.
Yeah.
But that's why DJ Moore and he hasn't been as involved in Cole Kmet, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm looking for a lot more this week. I do think the Bears can move the ball on the Packers defense. And remember that Love has not been as good of a quarterback this year for the Packers as he was in his, last year.
Yeah.
Throwing interceptions, turnovers, not moving the ball as well. I'm worried about the Bears' running defense. They can be run on. But so Josh Jacobs, if you're fantasy owners, Josh Jacobs, look for to have a big game. If you're looking at player props,
yeah,
I would be looking at Josh Jacobs. But, I do think the Bears can make this a competitive game and make something happen this week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And Thomas Brown will not have a backup center taking a handoff on the goal line. I think
exactly.
Think that play goes away. Quit trying to be cute.
Yeah.
I hate coaches who try to be too smart for the room.
Yeah.
And, I know there's a lot of formations, there's a lot of plays, there's a lot of variations.
Right.
However, football, for the most part, is not a complicated game. Block the guys up front, find the guy who's open, get the ball to a running back, play your touchdown specialist running back on the 1 yard line. These things
are
do
your job.
Yeah.
Do your job. That's all it is. You get paid to do a job. Do your job to win, and it takes the whole team to be that part of it. So everybody's got to do their job. Personally, I think the biggest issue that they had when they were talking about players that were not doing anything to better themselves was Nate Davis, and they got rid of him.
They finally caught him.
They finally got rid of him, and they did what they needed to do finally. But it's now okay. You got rid of the player. That's the issue. You got rid of Waldron. That you're saying the issue. Now the players made the talk. Now go out there and play and do what you're hired to do, and do it for the team, for each other, as they say, because that's what you're seeing winning teams do.
Right.
Winning teams are the ones that play for each other. So do that. Then you'll have a winning team.
Yeah, it's amazing. I still think Eberflus should have been gone. I want to see a real head coach, not a, in charge of this team, but we'll see how that goes too. I think Eberflus is slow pulling the trigger on some things, but I like where the team is going, and I think they will play a competitive game against the Packers this week. I don't know if they'll win.
Right, but at least be competitive.
I think it'll be a competitive game with Thomas Brown as their offensive coordinator.
Yep, I agree.
Another big rival game that is going to determine who has the inside track on first place in the NFC North or AFC North. Sorry, I get my NFCs and AFCs confused a little bit. Will be the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Pittsburgh, take on the Steelers. And the Ravens are trying to overcome that 0-2 start. They've put themselves back in the playoff chase, which has been, I think, very impressive considering how they did start the season. But now they're going to try and take first place in the NFC or AFC North. Try and grab that third seed in the AFC, and they're going against a team that they have a lot of problems with over the last few years. This is not going to be an easy game for the Ravens, no matter how good they've been looking and how good Lamar Jackson has been at quarterback. And I think he's having another great year.
Oh, yeah.
Steelers are fourth right now in my power rankings. Ravens are eighth. Against teams that are currently over 500, Steelers are 3-0. Ravens are 2-1. So they are both very competitive, both strong teams coming in. However, since 2019, I looked a few things up. Ravens are 3-7 against the Steelers. Lamar Jackson started 4 games in that span. In 131 pass attempts, 77 completions, 58.8% completion percentage, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, sacked 20 times for 98 yards. The Steelers give him hell. Yes. And think about Pittsburgh. I know nobody has been very impressed with the Steelers this year, and I want to get your opinion on how they're doing. But, they win. That's all they do is win.
Yeah, I mean, once they get, the Steelers' defensive front, is pretty solid. But but they can be run against. So the Steelers have they have a little bit of some holes, but their headache is always going to be TJ Watt because he's just a menace, and gets in, and he's a menace for Lamar Jackson. So if they're not protecting Lamar, you can bet that TJ Watt's going to be there and that defensive front. Now if Russell Wilson can make things happen here and get the ball out, and keep it going with what's the
in Pickens?
Pickens, thank you. I'm thinking different players here, but yeah, Pickens, he's been solid. He's got a great relationship now with Wilson. And I think they can do pretty well because I don't know if you noticed that there's some issues with the Ravens linebacking core, especially with number 0 who left the Bears.
Yeah.
And he's had some tackling issues. So that's kind of interesting in that. So if I know Tomlin, he's going to use a 2-headed monster in his running back. So he's going to use Najee Harris and he's going to use Jaylen Warren. And he's going to use both of them to try to punch into in midfield, get the run game to open that passing game. And then they're going to get that moving. If Russell Wilson can get to his targets, I think they're going to be competitive with the Ravens. Now, the secret is going to be if that defense can stop Derrick Henry.
Yes.
If they can't, it's going to be a Derrick Henry show.
Yes.
It's just going to be Derrick Henry going all the way. It's going to be a show between it, because if they can get that and they see that they can run on the Steelers, it's going to be Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. You're going to get the both of them in there to make sure that they can be all over the field, and then there's no competition. But I don't think it's going to be the Ravens rolling over the Steelers. I think the Steelers are going to be competitive in this game. Whether they win is going to be up to Wilson if he doesn't struggle all of a sudden.
Pittsburgh always wins every season. Tomlin has never had a losing season as head coach of the Steelers.
Right.
However, he never gets respect. And the Steelers never seem to get any respect. Why do you think that happens in the NFL? Why doesn't Tomlin get looked at more as one of the top coaches in the league, considering he's won with some very weak teams that had a lot of holes on their roster?
Yeah, he even had, I mean, had a winning record, even with the monstrosity of the I know group of quarterbacks that with Pickett and Rudolph or Randolph or whatever his name was. It just going through that whole aspect of those quarterbacks and still trying to win the game. And just to see watching Tomlin being so clever in the ways that he plays, he watches the quarterbacks on the opposite teams. He knows what their cadences are going to be. He knows what they like, and he plays on those things. Mm-hmm. So he's a very involved coach on both sides of the ball, but he is a master in the defense. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. They don't give him the credit that is deserved. If you ask anybody, they'll tell you the best coach in the world is Tomlin right now. In all of football, the best coach. Even though you have, Andy Reid, who's won several Super Bowls, so has Tomlin. But they look at all these other coaches and they're the best coaches, and they pass Tomlin, who's been there 18, 19 years, along with Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. So you've got two of the oldest coaches right now that have been there in the league. Yeah, long-term coaches playing together in this game to see which one is going to stand out the most.
Yeah, and you bring that up. That's going to be a subtle battle that I don't think a lot of people look at. Right. They're looking at Jackson against TJ Watt and other matchups, but you got two coaches who know their games, know their teams inside and out. Yeah. And are going against each other. And that's fun too. Watching two longtime coaches, successful NFL coaches, battle each other and see who can outwit the other one. And it's that can be a fun that can add a lot of fun to watching the game too. And
that's a game I want to watch. So it's on my docket to watch this weekend. So.
Good. Yeah. So I don't have a pick in that game yet. Let's see. This Ravens are favored by 3. However, again, Tomlin seems to have the inside track on how to shut down that Ravens offense.
Yeah.
So
because if Harbaugh changes something all of a sudden, I mean, Tomlin's got his number, so we'll see what happens.
But Derrick Henry makes a big difference.
Difference. Yeah.
Just leading the league in rushing touchdowns, touchdowns from scrimmage, and considering how many times he's carried the ball in his career and how overused he was with Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's still battering. He still battles. It's still amazing to watch him as a running back.
Yeah.
Because he still has a speed. When he breaks out, there's no catching him.
Yeah.
So, I love watching a runner like that. Well, I mean, I grew up watching the Bears, and I grew up watching a lot of great running backs. So,
right.
So I respect running backs, and Derrick Henry is one. Definitely a Hall of Famer when he comes up for the vote.
Exactly. Yep, for sure.
The other big rivalry game that we're looking at that will affect the playoff seeding in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs will be fighting to stay undefeated against the Buffalo Bills.
This is going to be an exciting game.
Yeah, it always is.
Yeah, I know.
Especially when the home
game to watch. Yeah, they're very good.
Hell of it is. All these games are 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Mm.
They're all at the same time.
Yeah,
which is
are they?
let me look up that Kansas City kickoff. is that a late kickoff or is that a late afternoon kick? Let's see. It might be a late afternoon kick.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Okay, yeah. Okay, it's a national game.
Yeah.
So, but, the Chiefs are undefeated. But if you look how they've been playing this season, I don't know how they've managed it.
Yeah.
Now, both of these teams, charter members of the American Football League, their first meeting was on November 6, 1960, when the Dallas Texans, who were the first, what the Chiefs were before they moved to Kansas City in 1962, they beat the Bills 45-28. And if I tell you the players on those teams and the quarterbacks, you would who, what, huh? Faced each other in the divisional round last year. And the Chiefs won 27-24. And of course, we remember the 2021 season when these two faced off in the divisional round. And the last 2 minutes of that game, the Chiefs, Mahomes and Allen just transcended the game.
Yeah.
Just brought quarterback play to another level. The way they attacked that game, it was amazing.
Oh yeah.
Might be one of the greatest games as far as quarterback performances that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The way they went back and forth. And I know a lot of people say that the Bills scored too early, but hell, you get 13 seconds on the clock. I mean,
right.
The Bills defense has got to do something too, and they completely fell apart in that game. But, again, you're facing two quarterbacks who were just a step above, in that game, and just incredible.
Yeah.
So, but
do you know if Amari Cooper is out or is he going to be playing?
I haven't seen. That is a good question.
Because I think that I know Keon Coleman was out.
Yeah, Keon Coleman's out.
Right. So I wasn't sure if Amari Cooper was cleared because I know there was a question of being questionable.
Yeah, I still see him listed as questionable, but to me, questionable means he's going to play.
Yeah. So if Amari Cooper's in, and then you've got, I think it's Shakir.
Yeah.
And and then the running backs. So we'll plus the tight end. I think at least it gives Josh Allen the weapons to make it a competitive game where he's not bandaging different players and having to make all the plays. But I guarantee you, there's going to be a touchdown by Allen in this game. If he can help it, and it's going to be a competitive game. It really is.
Yeah, James Cook running the ball well, 576 yards on the season, 8 touchdowns. Dalton Kincaid, the tight end, 2 touchdowns, 356 yards receiving on the season. So, yeah, I mean, Allen still has the weapons even without Keon Coleman.
Right.
It's going to be a big loss. But, again, Kansas City, they're not winning by much. They're not overwhelming teams this season. But they, the final score, you can't argue with the final score.
Right. And Butker's out. Butker, their kicker, who's been saving the game, he's out. So they've got a replacement kicker. So now they're, what exactly. So is that going to be a good thing? Or now it's going to put pressure on Mahomes to make sure he gets it up on touchdowns and not just rely on the kicker as they did the last game. So,
well, not only that, but needed a blocked field goal to actually lock down that game.
Exactly.
Denver almost beat them.
Yep. Yeah.
So as I say, Kansas City's not winning by a lot.
Right.
They are kind of, squeezing out these games. They won in overtime against Tampa. Played a tight game against the Raiders. Played tight. Well, kind of blew out the 49ers. I think that game wasn't as close as the final score indicates. But, it's going to be interesting to see how, Buffalo's going to play them close, but, can Kansas City, I don't know. It's a matter of, playing with a horseshoe in their pockets. It's,
well, Chiefs, the Chiefs, with Mahomes hasn't been, like you said, hasn't been passing well. Bills have been passing much better. Josh Allen's been passing a lot better. And Mahomes has not been Mahomey as he normally would be. So this is going to be a good test. Is Josh Allen? I guess the question is Josh Allen going to outpass Mahomes in this game, and they're going to go heavy on the pass game, just to get a lot of points, because Kansas City, their defense is pretty good. I think it's number 2 in the league. So their defense is pretty good. So which tells me that their defense are going to try to lock down the run game. And that's going to force a lot of passing by Allen. So it's going to be interesting on how this plays out.
Yeah. And they're second in the league in rushing yards per attempt allowed.
Yeah.
So, just that's going to play a big part of it, because Cook is going to have problems running. Can Allen do enough through the air to keep this game where it needs to be?
Exactly.
So, but Mahomes, 12 TDs and 9 interceptions. This hasn't been his season.
No, not at all. I don't know what's going on there, but but it was inevitable. He couldn't have perfect seasons all the time. There's going to be eventually a season that Mahomes is going to, struggle. He's going to have some issues, because now you have so much film on Mahomes that teams are just studying it to death.
Yeah. But Mahomes, his strength is always his ability to improv.
Yeah. And you haven't seen a lot of that, have you? Like this year?
Not this year. No, not as much.
Yeah.
I've seen him do designed plays where he pitches the ball forward to a running back.
Yeah.
Have not seen a lot of the improv that we've seen out of Mahomes for most of his career. And that has been a big difference. And I'm wondering if that eventually will be the big problem for the Chiefs, if that could bring the Chiefs down.
Yeah.
And
who knows?
It'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
We're going to go back to the Falcons real quick. William Amy brought up a question as far as concerns for the Falcons in this game against Denver. Line of scrimmage game for the Falcons. I fully agree with you, William. Concern is can't afford, and that's Nix, not Nixon. Can't afford him to scramble. No, you can't. You've got to seal down that pocket. Even if you can't get to him, you can't give him avenues to escape.
Right, exactly.
because that's going to be a big thing. If you can't seal him off,
he'll run.
He's going to escape, and he'll kill you.
Yeah.
Especially, again, with the injuries that the Falcons have in the secondary. It's going to be a big chore for Bates and Simmons to kind of help lock this down.
Yeah.
Against Bo Nix. So, but we'll see how well they do it.
Yep.
Coming up, I think that's pretty much all we can say about the games coming up this weekend. Wanda's waiver wire. Again, if you got fantasy football problems, you're not competing in your league, you're falling short every week. Wanda did a great job, has done a great job finding these players who should be available. They're not being rostered in a majority of leagues. And guys, you should be looking at picking up for the home stretch of the fantasy season.
That's right.
What do you got for us this week, Wanda?
Well, I've got several players here, and keeping the mindset, just like you were saying, that we need to be prepared when you're playing fantasy. If you're getting into the home stretch, it's looking like you've got a really good record and you're going to get into the playoffs. Now is the time to make sure that your bench is well packed, especially if you've got teams that are going into the playoffs and you've got big players. So like for myself, if I have Bijan and I know that the Falcons are going to try to make that, keep that run into the playoffs, I want to make sure I've got Tyler Algiers on my bench, because if something happens to Bijan, I've got the backup for that. So you want to make sure that you've got the backup player that goes in that's going to help your matchup. So first we got the quarterback, and you're thinking, okay, well, there's a lot of buys going on, but we want to look at matchups. So the best thing is, like right now, we were just talking about Bo Nix. Bo Nix is actually a good pickup for Denver, getting touchdowns. He's a running quarterback, which in fantasy, you have a running quarterback. They get into the end zone, more points for you. And so the matchup with the Falcons and the Raiders after could be a sneaky pick for you if you want to get those extra points. So I would keep that in mind. Wide receiver, Quentin Johnson from the Chargers. He's getting a lot of movement. He's had double-digit points in the last 4 games. Not just Ladd McConkey. They're now throwing to Quentin Johnson. You're seeing the Chargers really pick up rhythm, and he's 45% rostered and seems to find the end zone in every game. So if you want to need a flex player, you can pick up Quentin Johnson. Yeah,
and Justin Herbert's in beast mode right now.
Oh yeah,
for the Chargers.
Yeah,
just on an incredible run. So that's a great.
It's amazing how Harbaugh really turned that clock on for him and made it competitive. So
yeah.
And then running back which is pretty surprising, but it's Audric Estime from the Denver Broncos. Okay, Audric Estime played for Notre Dame, and he was a beast of a running back when he played. So he's been kind of like on the bubble there, just waiting to be used. And now he's being used a lot more, which is great. So he's only rostered in about 1% of the leagues. So he's a great matchup this week against the Falcons. He's had 14 carries for 53 yards. So I would take him as a flex player, just if you need the extra points, just to make sure. And I always want to give one special helpful hint. If you got a flex player, you got to make sure that your flex player isn't playing on a Thursday night game. And that being that, you don't want to he's your flex player. It's a flex position. So if you put a flex player that's playing on Thursday night and now you need to change a player because someone's hurt, you're stuck. So always leave that flex position open on a Sunday game and not on a Thursday game.
That's hopefully a good point. I never thought of that. That's a great way of looking at it.
There you go. So those are my waiver wires for this week.
Great to hear. So again, if you follow what Wanda's been saying the last couple of weeks, she's been moving it. So it's going to be interesting to see. Oh, one other piece of NFL news I saw this last week. We commented on, I think last week. Anthony Richardson is back as the starting quarterback for the Colts. Joe Flacco's being benched. The Colts did not get that veteran quarterback hit that some teams look for. And, what Carolina looked for out of Darren Dalton, and they're back to Bryce Young, and Indianapolis is back to Anthony Richardson. And Richardson is going to get a chance to quarterback the rest of the season, which is the way it should have been to begin
in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they got confused with finding out what Richardson could do and what his potential is and trying to make the playoffs. You can't do both.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you be able to get away with doing both on the NFL level. So, forget the playoffs. It's time to find out what Richardson can do and see if you can move forward with him or if you got to start looking at the 2025 draft. And I don't know who's going to be coming out. I don't pay attention until I really don't pay attention to the draft until free agency is over.
Yeah.
And then I start looking at the draft because, do you know what teams are going to draft when they haven't made their free agent acquisitions yet?
Yeah.
Or haven't lost players to free agency yet. Yeah. That plays a big part in draft evaluation. So I don't know what quarterbacks are coming out. But the Colts are going to be seeing if Richardson can be that guy. He's got a monster arm on him. Tends to get hurt running the ball. Got to teach that kid how to slide. And, maybe, we'll see how that plays out the rest of the year. Heading into our picks, our Week 11 picks. I know I put Week 10 on the notes. Week 11 picks. Wanda, how'd you do last week, by the way?
I was 2 for 3 last week.
Okay.
So,
Not bad.
Not bad.
So let's hear who you have, who you're picking for this week.
I have the Rams and the Patriots this week. I think the Rams will win by 10. I think they can actually really work on this game. I think they'll do well. I think at this point, whatever McVay's going to work on here with Stafford, and they're going to get the ball rolling here. So I think the Rams defense is doing much better than they had been before. So I think they'll be able to at least maintain May, but we'll kind of see. But I think it's a good chance that the Rams could win by 10. And then
they're favored by 4.5, so that would be a big win.
Yeah, I just have this feeling. I don't know why, because I went kind of back and forth between 4 points, 4.5 points to 7. And I thought, I think they might be able to actually make this a little bit more of a game here, competitive game. So, yeah. And then I have Cleveland and the Saints, and I think the Browns can do this by 3. So I think I'm not sure how Jameis is going to do, but I think at least they'll get the ball down the field and run the ball. So I think they're going to be okay against the Saints.
Okay.
And then Cincinnati against the Chargers. And I think Cincy can win by 4. So even though the Chargers have a very good defensive front, I think Jamar Chase is going to move and get out. He's going to find those open pockets, and Burrow is going to laser it in there. So I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think Cincy will win by either 3.5 or 4.
The hell of it is the way Cincy's been playing. Burrow's been having a hell of a year.
Yeah.
However, they've been losing a lot of games, and I thought they should win. And their defense has not been able to sustain winning football. But Burrow has been having a very impressive season.
Yeah.
Got a question from Colton, and it's fair. It's rough, but it's fair. Who is winning, Ravens or Steelers? Wow. Colton, of course, he's got a Steelers logo.
I just noticed that. I would like to say it would be the Steelers because I'm a huge fan of Tom, and I would like to see. Mike Tomlin. I would like to see the Steelers win this. But it's going to be a hard game. It all depends on whether the Steelers can stop Henry. If they can stop Henry, I think they have a chance of winning this game. And if Russell Wilson can get the ball out and avoid getting any sacks. So that's kind of where they're going. There may be a possibility in this game that they may use Justin Fields in a type of run. So they may use him in a gadget play or so. I would not be surprised.
Taysom Hill style of offense.
Yeah.
A guy who he figures in there to run, but hey, he does have an arm. He's capable of completing passes too. So.
Right, exactly. So that might be sneaky.
Uh-huh. Oh, by the way, we got Zozo's here. So Zozo's here for the picks, and good to have her here. But it's a good call. I think the Steelers win. I think the Ravens have problems against the Steelers. The Steelers have the defense to move the ball against one of the top offenses in the league.
Yeah.
But I think the Steelers will be able to move the ball against the Ravens defense, which has had a lot of problems since Mike McDonald went to be head coach of the Seahawks. That Ravens defense has not been as effective this season, and you called it out earlier in the show, Wanda, as far as Roquan Smith and the linebacking core have not been as effective this year in shutting down opposing teams. And again, I think the Steelers are underrated. So I would take the Steelers. I would take the 3 points. Yeah. They're underdogs in this game at home. But I would take Steelers +3 if I were going to bet this game. So that's the way I look at it.
There you go.
Nostradamus is going to give you his predictions. And, as I said, 3-0 last week. So I'm 19-13 on the season against the spread, 594 winning percentage. Did have a couple of rough weeks and was glad to be able to bring it back again last week, week 10. To start with, taking the Vikings -6 at Tennessee. They're favored by 6.
Good pick.
What?
That's a good pick.
Thanks. That blitzing defense is going to make life miserable for Will Levis. And I know Sam Darnold is kind of regressing a little bit as the season's going on. And the Titans do have a very tough defense. However, I think you can get a turnover out of Levis, and the Vikings take advantage of field position with their offense. So I am taking the Vikings. Falcons fans, close your ears. I'm taking the Broncos, favored by 2 at home against the Falcons. I don't think they have the pass rush to fluster Bo Nix. And as a rookie, I think he can be flustered if he's facing some tough pass rush. And the secondary has injury problems. And I think that's going to be key for the Falcons in this game. It's going to be tough for them to hold the Broncos offense down. And the Broncos do have one of the toughest defenses in the league. So, sorry, Falcons fans. And I disagree with you on the Chargers-Bengals.
Okay.
I am taking the Chargers, another home team that is an underdog. They're being given 1.5 at home against the Bengals. Again, to me, Justin Herbert is in beast mode, playing, has really raised his game since the first month or two of the season. And Los Angeles, the Chargers are still the toughest defense in the NFL to score in. So this is a team that knows how to play defense and is going to make life very difficult, although the Bengals will have T. Higgins back for this game. But I'm still, home dogs, I'll take that game because I think the Chargers can win that game outright. And that's all the time we have for our show today. Had a lot of fun talking a number of football games happening this weekend.
Yep.
We'll see how it goes. It should be an exciting Sunday. We hope everyone here enjoys the Sunday. Hope you enjoy the show if you catch it on replay. And everyone have a great week.
Bye.